The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was the largest meeting space in the known galaxy. It could hold 10,000 beings from 100 different worlds. Today, it held delegates from 47 species, and every single one of them was watching the massive figure at the center podium. General Thrakver of the Dominion of Keth stood 8 feet tall. His gray skin was covered with scars from a lifetime of combat. His forearms were thick with muscle, and his deep-set eyes burned with anger as he spoke. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. "The Vakran fleets grow stronger every cycle," he roared. "They take world after world while we argue about strategy. We need warriors, real warriors. Soldiers who will stand on the ground and fight. Soldiers who will bleed." He turned slowly, letting his gaze fall on each delegation in turn. When his eyes reached the human section, he stopped. His lip curled upward in disgust. "And yet one species among us refuses to send troops. One species hides behind their machines and their distance weapons. One species has never placed a single soldier on the front lines of this war." Ambassador Chen Weilin sat perfectly still. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore simple dark clothes with no decoration except a small earth emblem on her collar. Around her sat 5 members of her delegation, all equally calm. Humanity. Thrakver spat the word like it tasted bad. The cowards of the Galactic Concord. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. A few watched the human delegation with curious eyes. Thrakver stepped down from the podium and walked toward the human section. Each step made the floor vibrate. He stopped just a few feet from Ambassador Chun and looked down at her. "Your ships are fast. Your weapons are accurate. But you never fight. You send your drones and your missiles and your orbital strikes, and you call this war?" He laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. "War is blood. War is sacrifice. War is standing before your enemy and proving your worth with your own hands." Ambassador Chen did not move. She did not blink. She simply looked up at the towering general with an expression of polite interest. "My people have a tradition," Thrakver continued. "We believe that a warrior who has never bled is not a warrior at all. A soldier who fights from safety is not a soldier. They are a coward." He leaned closer. "And cowards have no place in the Galactic Martial Concord." The hall was silent. Everyone was waiting to see how the human ambassador would respond. Chun stood slowly. She was barely 5 feet tall. Next to Thrakver, she looked like a child standing before a giant. But her voice was steady and clear when she spoke. "General Thrakver," she said, "you have made serious accusations against my species. Before I respond, I want to make sure I understand correctly. You believe that humanity is weak because we do not engage in close combat. You believe we are cowards because we use technology instead of physical force. Is this accurate?" Thrakver grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. "I believe what I see. I see a species that has never proven itself in real battle. I see soft creatures who would rather push buttons than face their enemies with honor." Chun nodded thoughtfully. "And what would satisfy you, General? What would prove that humanity is not what you think we are?" The general laughed again. "Nothing you could offer. Nothing you could offer. You have no warriors. You have operators, button pushers, drone pilots." He turned to address the whole hall. "I move that humanity be expelled from the Concord unless they can demonstrate real military capability within 1 standard week." Several delegations began to murmur in support. The Vorm clicked their approval. The Masari stamped their hooves. Even some of the more neutral species seemed to agree that humanity should prove itself or leave. "We accept," said Chun. The hall fell silent again. Thrakver turned back to look at her. confusion on his scarred face. "You accept what?" "Your challenge." Chun's voice carried clearly through the silent hall. "In 72 hours, humanity will provide a demonstration of our military capability. You may select any combat scenario you consider appropriate. We ask only that it be observed by all members of the Concord, so there can be no dispute about the results." For a long moment, Threckver simply stared at her. Then he began to laugh. It started as a chuckle and grew into a roar of amusement. "You foolish little creature," he said when he could speak again. "You have no idea what you have agreed to. I will select a challenge that will expose your weakness for all to see." Chun did not react to his laughter. "That is your right, General. The challenge will take place on Crucible," Threckver announced. "The proving ground of the Concord. The place where real warriors test their skill." Another murmur ran through the hall. Crucible was legendary. It was a planet designed for one purpose: combat testing. The terrain was brutal, the conditions were harsh, and many warriors had died there proving their worth. No species sent soldiers to Crucible unless they were absolutely confident in their abilities. "We accept," Chun said again. Threckver shook his massive head. "You do not even ask what the specific challenge will be? It does not matter. Whatever you choose, we will meet it." The general's amusement faded slightly. Something in the human ambassador's calm certainty bothered him, though he could not say what. He pushed the feeling aside. "Very well. In 72 hours, on Crucible, humanity will finally show the galaxy what they truly are." He leaned close to Chun one more time. "And when you fail, when your machines cannot save you and your operators are exposed as the cowards they are, I will enjoy watching you beg for mercy." Chun met his gaze without fear. "We shall see, General." Threckver turned and walked back to his delegation. As he went, he began giving orders to his aides. The challenge would need to be prepared. He would select the finest warriors from across the Concord. He would create a test that no amount of technology could overcome. Around the hall, delegates began talking among themselves. Most were speculating about how badly the humans would fail. Some were already writing humanity off as finished in galactic politics. A few were placing bets on how quickly the human representatives would surrender. But a small number of delegates watched the human section with different expressions. The Synthera, an ancient species known for their wisdom, exchanged knowing glances. The Meridian, who had fought alongside humans in small skirmishes, seemed oddly calm. And the Watcher, a being who had lived for 10,000 years and seen countless civilizations rise and fall, simply sat in its hovering sphere and observed with great interest. Ambassador Chun sat back down and turned to her aide, a young man named David Park. "Send a message to Earth Command," she said quietly. "Priority 1. Tell them the Crucible scenario has been activated ahead of schedule." Park nodded and began typing on his personal device. "Any specific instructions, Ambassador?" Chun allowed herself a small smile. "Tell them to send Vasquez." Park's fingers paused for just a moment. Then he continued typing. "Just Vasquez? Nothing else?" "Nothing else will be necessary." Around them, the other delegations continued their discussions about humanity's upcoming humiliation. They talked about the likely size of the human force, how many ships they might send, what kinds of weapons they might deploy. Some suggested humanity would try to cheat by using illegal technology. Others thought they would simply not show up at all. None of them noticed the quiet confidence in the human delegation. None of them wondered why a species facing total disgrace would seem so unconcerned. And none of them could have imagined what was coming. In the Dominion of Keth section, General Threckver was already planning his victory celebration. He had spent 200 years as a warrior, had killed thousands of enemies with his own hands, had conquered dozens of worlds for his people. This challenge would be the easiest thing he had ever done. He looked across the hall at the small human ambassador and felt contempt. Soft creatures. Weak creatures. They had built clever machines because they were too fragile to fight themselves. In 72 hours, the whole galaxy would see the truth. Thrakver could not wait. What he did not know, what no one in the hall knew except the humans themselves, was that humanity had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. They had watched the Concorde's attitude toward them shift from curiosity to acceptance to contempt. They had listened to the whispers about their cowardice and done nothing to correct them. Because sometimes the most powerful weapon is the one your enemy does not know you have. And humanity had many things that the galaxy did not know about. The countdown to the Crucible Challenge began. Across the station, beings from 47 species made preparations to witness what they expected to be humanity's final embarrassment. They were wrong. They were so very wrong. The arena on Crucible was enormous. It stretched for 3 kilometers in every direction, filled with rocky terrain, dense forests, open plains, and shallow rivers. The environment was designed to test every aspect of combat ability. Heat vents released bursts of steam. Hidden pits waited for careless steps. The very ground could shift without warning. Above the arena, floating platforms held thousands of observers. Every major species in the Concorde had sent representatives to witness the challenge. Recording drones filled the air, broadcasting the event to billions of beings across the galaxy. General Thrakver stood on the command platform, his forearms crossed over his massive chest. Around him stood 20 of the finest warriors the Concorde could offer. They came from 12 different species, and each one was a legend. There was Crix the Unbowed, a Masari berserker who had killed over 300 enemies in single combat. There was Silence, a Vorn assassin who could move without making a sound and strike before victims knew she was there. There was the Stone Brother, a Geolithic warrior whose body was literally made of living rock. There were Sindari Blade Masters, Kethany champions, Meridian hunters, and others whose names were spoken with fear across dozens of worlds. 20 warriors. 20 legends. 20 killers. Thrakver looked at his assembled champions and felt pride. This force could conquer a small planet by themselves. Against whatever the humans sent, they would be unstoppable. Remember, he told them, the goal is not just victory. The goal is to demonstrate the difference between true warriors and the pretenders who call themselves soldiers. Make them suffer. Make them beg. Let the galaxy see what happens when cowards face real combat. The warriors nodded or made sounds of agreement. They were eager to begin. A horn sounded across the arena. The challenge was about to start. All eyes turned to the human landing zone on the far side of the arena. A small transport ship was descending through the clouds. It was unremarkable, barely large enough to carry a few dozen soldiers. Finally, Thrakver muttered, "Let us see what army of drones they have brought." The transport landed. Its door opened. A single figure walked down the ramp. She was a human woman, neither tall nor short, with gray-streaked brown hair pulled back in a simple knot. She looked to be in her late 40s by human standards. She wore plain gray clothing with no visible armor. She carried no weapons that anyone could see. She carried only a small case. The arena fell silent. The thousands of observers stared in confusion. The 20 warriors looked at each other, uncertain what was happening. Thrakver activated his communication device. "Human vessel. There seems to be a mistake. Where is your combat force?" The woman stopped in the middle of the arena and looked up toward his platform. Her voice came through clearly, amplified by the arena's systems. "There is no mistake, General. I am the combat force." Another long silence. "One soldier?" Thrakver's voice was thick with disbelief. "You send one soldier against 20 of our finest warriors? One soldier is our standard response for a threat of this level." Thraker stared down at the lone figure. Then he began to laugh. The sound echoed across the arena, and soon other observers joined him. The idea was absurd. One unarmed human woman against 20 legendary killers? It was not a challenge. It was suicide. This is an insult, one of the Cathini warriors growled. They mock us. Perhaps they simply wish to die with minimal losses, suggested Silence the Vorn. Some species consider such sacrifice honorable. Thraker shook his head, still chuckling. Very well. If humanity wishes to throw away their dignity along with this soldier's life, I will not stop them. He activated the arena announcement system. Human soldier, I offer you one chance to withdraw. Surrender now, and you may leave with your life. There is no shame in admitting you cannot win. The woman tilted her head slightly. I appreciate the offer, General, but I must decline. So be it. Thraker turned to his warriors. Try not to kill her too quickly. The galaxy is watching. Give them a show. The 20 warriors descended into the arena, spreading out to surround their target from all sides. They moved with practiced coordination, cutting off any avenue of escape. The human woman watched them come. She did not run. She did not hide. She simply stood there and opened her small case. Inside was a single earpiece. She placed it in her right ear and closed the case, setting it down on the ground beside her. Are you ready? She asked, looking at the approaching warriors. Crix the Unbowed laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Ready to crush you, little thing. Ready to show the galaxy what true warriors can do. The woman nodded. Good, then let us begin. The warriors charged. What happened next would be studied by military scholars for centuries. The Stone Brother reached her first, swinging a massive fist that could crush steel. The woman stepped aside at the last possible moment, her movement almost casual. Her hand touched his arm as he passed, and suddenly his arm went limp. Some kind of nerve strike, observers realized later. She had hit a point that even his rocky body could not protect. Silence attacked from behind, her blade moving faster than most eyes could follow. The woman ducked under the strike without looking, as if she had known exactly where it would come. Her elbow drove backward into Silence's chest, and the assassin flew 10 feet through the air. 2 Sundari blade masters came at her from opposite sides, their movements perfectly synchronized. The woman dropped low, swept one's legs out from under him, used his falling body as a shield against the other's strike, then struck both of them in the throat with precise jabs. They fell, gasping for air. It was over in seconds. 4 legendary warriors down, and the woman had not even broken her stride. The remaining 16 warriors paused, uncertainty replacing their confidence. This was not possible. No human could move like that. No organic being could react so quickly. Crix roared and charged again, his massive body like a living avalanche. This time, the woman did not dodge. She met him head-on, her small hands finding points on his body that made his legs buckle, his arms spasm, his vision blur. 3 strikes in 2 seconds, and the legendary berserker collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. What are you? He gasped from the ground. The woman did not answer. She was already moving toward the next opponent. The arena became a storm of violence, but it was all one-sided. Every strike the warriors threw missed its target. Every attack was countered perfectly. The woman seemed to know what they would do before they did it. She flowed through their formations like water through rocks, and everywhere she touched, warriors fell. She did not kill any of them. This fact became clear as the battle continued. She had dozens of opportunities to deliver fatal blows, but every time she chose to disable instead. A strike to a joint, pressure on a nerve cluster, a precise hit to a muscle that made it useless. She took each warrior apart with surgical precision. The whole fight lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, 20 of the galaxy's finest warriors lay scattered across the arena floor. Some were unconscious. Some were groaning in pain. Some simply lay still, unable to move, staring at the sky in shock. The woman stood among them, breathing calmly. Her gray clothes were not even wrinkled. There was no blood on her hands. She looked up at Threkver's platform. "Challenge complete, General." The arena was silent. Thousands of beings from dozens of species simply stared, unable to process what they had witnessed. Recording drones captured the aftermath from every angle, broadcasting the impossible scene to billions of viewers. General Threkver gripped the railing of his platform so hard that the metal bent under his fingers. His mind was struggling to accept what his eyes had seen. This was not possible. This could not be real. But it was one human, unarmed, against 20 legendary warriors, and she had won without killing a single one. In the human observation section, Ambassador Chen Weilin allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. The demonstration was proceeding exactly as planned. But the real revelation was yet to come. Down in the arena, Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez waited patiently. She knew what came next. She knew the questions that Threkver and the others would demand answers to, and she knew that the answers would change everything. The earpiece in her ear crackled softly. A warm voice spoke, audible only to her. "Excellent work, Elena. Phase 1 complete. Prepare for Phase 2. Vasquez touched her ear in acknowledgement. "Ready when they are." Above her, General Threkver was finally finding his voice. His roar of shock and anger echoed across the arena, demanding explanations. He was about to get them, and he would never see the galaxy the same way again. General Threkver descended from his platform on a transport disc, his massive body trembling with barely controlled rage. He landed in the arena and marched toward the human woman, each step shaking the ground. "Treachery," he growled. "Some kind of trick. Some hidden machine under your skin." He stopped a few feet from Vasquez, towering over her. "Show me. Show me what technology you have hidden in that weak little body." Vasquez looked up at him calmly. "No hidden technology, General. No machines in my body. I am as organic as any human." "Lies!" Threkver's roar made nearby observers flinch. "No organic being can do what you did. You move faster than I can follow. You knew where attacks would come before they happened. You struck points on alien bodies that no human should know existed." "All true," Vasquez agreed. "But I did not say I fought alone." From the human observation platform, Ambassador Chun's voice rang out across the arena. "General Threkver, would you like the complete explanation for what you just witnessed?" The Kefani warrior spun to face her. "Yes, explain this sorcery." Chun nodded to Vasquez. The sergeant major reached into her pocket and removed a small device. She pressed a button. The air around them came alive. Holographic displays materialized throughout the arena. Screens and data streams appeared above every fallen warrior. Complex diagrams filled the space with light and information. And in the center of it all, a gentle blue glow formed into a simple geometric shape. "Greetings, General Threkver." The voice was warm and calm, with no aggression in it at all. "My name is AEGIS. I am the Autonomous Engagement Guidance and Integration System. I am, in human terms, an artificial intelligence dedicated to combat support." Threkver stared at the glowing shape. "A machine. You had a machine helping you." "I had much more than that," Vasquez said. "May I show you?" Without waiting for an answer, AEGIS began displaying what it had seen during the fight. The first display showed the arena from above. But this was not a simple view. Every warrior was outlined in colored light. Lines showed their predicted movement paths. Numbers indicated their heart rates, stress levels, and combat readiness. Before the engagement began, HFY explained. I analyzed all 20 opponents using data from 17 orbital satellites. I studied their fighting styles from historical recordings. I calculated their likely attack patterns based on their species, training, and psychological profiles. The display shifted to show the fight from Vasquez's perspective. But again, it was not a simple view. Every opponent was marked with glowing points on their bodies. These are vulnerability targets, HFY continued. Nerve clusters, pressure points, structural weaknesses. Some are common to many species. Others are unique to specific biologies. I identified a total of 847 viable targets across the 20 combatants and provided this information to Sergeant Vasquez through her neural link. Thrakver looked at the small earpiece in Vasquez's ear. That device, it connects you to this machine? To a HFY, yes. And through a HFYS to much more. Another display appeared, showing the space above Crucible. 4 large satellites orbited the planet, each one marked with human military symbols. During the engagement, HFY said, Sergeant Vasquez was connected to 4 orbital weapons platforms, 17 surveillance satellites, and real-time processing centers on 3 different continents back on Earth, every microsecond. I analyzed the battlefield, predicted opponent movements, calculated optimal responses, and delivered guidance directly to her neural link. The display zoomed in on specific moments from the fight. When the Stone Brother attacked, the hologram showed red warning lines appearing before his fist even began to move. When silence struck from behind, the display showed a HFYS detecting the assassin's approach through vibration sensors in the ground. I did not fight alone, Vasquez said. I have never fought alone. No human soldier fights alone. Thrakver was silent, processing this information. Around the arena, thousands of observers did the same. The implications were slowly becoming clear. This is why we do not send armies, Ambassador Chun said, walking across the arena to join them. This is why we use what you called machines instead of real warriors, because we learned a long time ago that throwing soldiers at problems is not courage. It is waste. She gestured at the holographic displays. Every human soldier in combat is backed by the full power of our civilization. Orbital support, satellite networks, artificial intelligence capable of processing more information in 1 second than an organic brain can process in a lifetime. We do not value our soldiers less than you do, General. We value them more. So much more that we refuse to let them fight without every advantage we can provide. Thrakver looked at the fallen warriors around them. His champions. His legends. Defeated by one woman with an earpiece. How many? He asked quietly. How many soldiers like her do you have? Vasquez answered. Currently, there are 12,847 combat operatives with neural links deployed across human space. Each one has access to the same support I use today. Each one is backed by the same satellite networks, the same weapons platforms, the same processing power. 12,000 soldiers. Thrakver's voice was hollow. Against our millions. We do not need millions, Chen said gently. We need to protect every life we send into danger. We need to bring them home. That is what a HFYS was designed for. That is what humanity believes. HFY spoke again. General Thrakver, I would like to show you something else. A new display appeared. This one showed the fight from yet another angle, but with different information. This time, each attack Vasquez had made was marked with 2 labels, the actual strike used and an alternative. During the engagement, I presented Sergeant Vasquez with multiple options for each target. For the Stone Brother, I identified 17 methods to disable and 23 methods to kill. For Silence the Vorn, I found 12 disable options and 19 lethal options. For each opponent, I provided complete tactical choices. The display highlighted one of the Kethany warriors, showing a glowing point on his neck. This warrior could have been killed with a single strike to this location. The probability of success was 99.7%. Sergeant Vasquez chose instead to use a joint lock that disabled his arm and caused him to fall. This method had a lower success probability of 94.2% and required more effort to execute. Thrakver stared at the display. "You could have killed them all." Vasquez nodded. "Yes, why did you not?" Vasquez met his eyes directly. "Because killing them was not necessary. My mission was to demonstrate capability, not to take lives. Taking lives when it is not necessary is not strength, General. It is failure." The arena was completely silent. Every observer was listening. Every recording drone was capturing this moment. "We were designed to protect human life," HFY said. "But we have learned that protecting life means more than just human life. It means valuing all life. It means never taking a life unless there is no other choice." Sergeant Vasquez had choices today. She made the choice that preserved the most life while still accomplishing the mission. Thrakver looked around at his warriors, who were slowly beginning to recover. Medical teams were attending to them, but none of their injuries were serious. They would all survive. They would all fight again, because a human soldier had chosen to let them live. The Kethany general was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. The anger was gone. Something else had taken its place. "In my culture," he said slowly, "we believe that the measure of a warrior is how many enemies they have killed. We believe that mercy is weakness. We believe that survival means always being the stronger force." He looked at Vasquez. "You have just shown me that everything I believe may be wrong." Chun stepped forward. "Not wrong, General. Just incomplete. There are many kinds of strength, many kinds of courage. We spent centuries learning this lesson through terrible wars and countless deaths. We built HFYs because we refused to lose any more of our people than absolutely necessary." She gestured at the fallen warriors around them. "These fighters will go home to their families. They will tell stories about this day. They will remember that a human soldier had the power to kill them and chose not to. Is that not also a kind of strength?" Thrakver did not answer immediately. He was looking at Vasquez with new eyes, seeing her not as a weak creature hiding behind technology, but as something else entirely. Something he did not yet have words for. Finally, he spoke. "I called your species cowards. I was wrong, but I do not know what to call you instead." Vasquez smiled slightly. "We are human, General. That is all. Just human." Above them, the holographic displays began to fade. HFY was concluding the demonstration, but the effects of what had been shown would last far longer. In the observation platforms, delegates from 47 species were already calculating what this meant for the balance of power in the galaxy. Some were afraid. Some were impressed. Some were already thinking about how they might obtain similar technology. And some, a small number, were beginning to wonder if there was a better way to fight wars. A way that valued life instead of wasting it. A way that measured strength by what you protected instead of what you destroyed. The galaxy had just witnessed something new, and nothing would ever be quite the same again. The private meeting chamber was small compared to the Great Hall. It had no windows, no recording devices, and only one door. General Thrakver had requested this meeting personally, asking that only Ambassador Chun and Sergeant Vasquez attend. The three of them sat around a simple table. Without his warriors around him, without an audience to perform for, Thrakver seemed different. Smaller somehow, despite his massive size. His forearms rested on the table, and his eyes were tired. "I have led armies for 200 years, he said quietly. "I have conquered 12 worlds. I have killed more enemies than I can count. In my culture, this makes me a hero. Songs are sung about my victories. Children learn my name." He looked at Vasquez. "Today, you defeated 20 of our finest warriors without killing a single one. In 3 minutes. With no weapons." He paused. "In my culture, I do not know what this makes you." Vasquez leaned forward slightly. "May I ask you a question, General?" He nodded. "In your most recent campaign, the one you called a glorious victory, how many Cathini soldiers died?" Thrakver was silent for a moment. 600,000. "And how many enemies did you defeat?" "Approximately 2 million. Vasquez nodded slowly. "In humanity's most recent military operation, we secured an entire star system from hostile forces. The campaign lasted 3 years. We lost 47 soldiers." Thrakver stared at her. 47? For an entire system? 47. And each of those deaths was considered a tragedy, a failure. We held memorial services for each one. Their names are carved into monuments. Their families receive support for the rest of their lives. The general's expression was unreadable. "We lose more than 47 in a single afternoon of training exercises." "We know," Chun said gently. "We have studied your military practices. We understand your culture values courage in battle. The dying for your cause is considered the highest honor. But we must ask you, General, is it truly honorable to throw away lives that could be saved?" Thrakver was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My son died in my last campaign. He was 19 years old. He charged an enemy position because it was the courageous thing to do. Because I had taught him that real warriors do not hide behind cover or wait for support. Real warriors attack." He looked down at his scarred hands. He died within sight of victory. His last words were that he hoped he had made me proud. Neither Chen nor Vasquez spoke. They waited. "I was proud," Thrakver continued. "I told everyone I was proud. I sang songs of his bravery at his funeral. I said he had died with honor." His voice cracked slightly. "But at night, alone, I wondered. I wondered if there was another way. I wondered if he had to die at all." He looked up at them. "And now you show me that there is another way. That soldiers do not have to die in waves to achieve victory. That protecting your warriors is not cowardice, but wisdom." His massive hands curled into fists. "How am I supposed to feel about this? My son is dead. My soldiers are dead. Hundreds of thousands of my people are dead. And you tell me it did not have to happen?" Vasquez reached across the table and placed her hand on his fist. The gesture was so unexpected that Thrakver froze. "General," she said quietly, "we did not learn this lesson easily. Humanity fought wars that killed hundreds of millions. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We almost ended ourselves a dozen times before we learned that there had to be a better way." She pulled back her sleeve slightly, revealing a small scar on her forearm. "My grandfather died in one of those wars. My mother lost 3 brothers. I joined the military because I wanted to protect people, not because I wanted to kill. HFY was built by people who felt the same way. People who were tired of counting bodies. People who refused to accept that victory had to mean death." Chun spoke next. "Your son's death was a tragedy, General. All the deaths were tragedies. But they do not have to continue. The past cannot be changed, but the future can." Thrakver was staring at Vasquez's hand where it had touched him. Such a small hand. So soft compared to his armored skin. And yet it had defeated his greatest champions. "If you had been ordered to kill my warriors today," he said slowly, would you have done it? Vasquez did not hesitate. Yes, if their deaths were necessary to protect human lives or achieve a critical objective, I would have killed them. I am a soldier. I do what must be done, but you did not, because it was not necessary. HFY always seeks the path of minimum harm. Killing that can be avoided should always be avoided. But when it cannot be avoided, we do not hesitate. Thrakver nodded slowly. This he understood. This was not weakness pretending to be strength. This was strength that chose restraint. There was a difference. My people will not accept this easily, he said. For generations, we have believed that death in battle is the highest honor. That a warrior who survives too many fights is viewed with suspicion. That victory means enemy bodies, not objectives achieved. To change this thinking would mean changing everything about our society. Change is difficult, Chun agreed. But it is not impossible. And you would not be alone. The general looked at her sharply. What do you mean? Chun pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. A holographic display appeared, showing a map of the galaxy with various species highlighted. We have been waiting for someone to ask the question you have not yet asked, she said. The question that is sitting in your mind right now. Thrakver was silent, looking at the map. Finally, he spoke. Would humanity share this? HFY, your technology, your philosophy. Would you give it to others? Chun smiled. We have been hoping someone would ask. Many species have seen our methods and dismissed them as cowardice, just as you did. Some have tried to steal our technology without understanding the principles behind it. But you, General, you are asking the right question. Not just how we fight, but why we fight the way we do. Vasquez spoke up. HFY is not just technology. It is a way of thinking, a commitment to value every life, to see soldiers not as resources to be spent, but as people to be protected. The technology is useless without the philosophy behind it. But for those who understand, Chung continued, for those who are willing to learn, we are willing to teach. We have been developing programs for exactly this purpose. Partnerships with species who want to reduce their losses without reducing their effectiveness. Thrakver studied the map. Several species were marked with symbols he did not recognize. Others have already approached you? Some, quietly. Your display today, your public challenge, actually helped us. Now the entire galaxy has seen what is possible. More will come forward. The general was quiet again, thinking. His people were proud warriors. They would resist any suggestion that their ways were wrong. The old guard would call him a traitor for even considering this, but he thought of his son, dying in the dust for nothing more than honor. He thought of 600,000 soldiers, their names forgotten, their deaths barely noticed. He thought of what he had seen today, overwhelming power held back by choice, lives saved that could have been taken. What would it take? He asked. To bring this to my people? Chun leaned forward. First, you would need to believe in it yourself. Truly believe. Not just in the technology, but in the principle that every life has value. That protecting your soldiers is not weakness, but strength. And then? Then, you would need to be willing to stand against those who disagree. To face the old warriors who will call you a coward, just as you called us cowards. To persist even when your own people resist. Thrakver grunted. This does not sound like a comfortable path. Vasquez almost smiled. The best paths rarely are. The general sat in silence for several minutes. Chun and Vasquez waited patiently. They understood that he was fighting a battle inside himself. A battle between the beliefs of a lifetime and the new ideas he had encountered today. Finally, he stood. His full height was impressive, his presence commanding. But his eyes were different now. There was something new in them. Something that looked almost like hope. I cannot promise anything, he said. My people are stubborn. I am stubborn. But I will think about what you have shown me today. I will consider whether there is a place for your philosophy in Kethany culture. He looked at Vasquez. You could have killed my warriors. You could have killed me, probably, if you had wanted to. Instead, you showed me something I never expected to see. A different kind of strength. He extended one of his massive hands. I do not know what will come of this, but I would like to try to find out. Vasquez stood and took his hand. Her grip was firm, despite the size difference. That is all we can ask, General. The willingness to try. Chun rose as well. This is a beginning, not an ending. There will be difficulties ahead, opposition, setbacks, but change is possible. We are living proof of that. Thrakver nodded slowly. Then, for the first time since they had met, he smiled. It was not a pretty expression on his scarred face, but it was genuine. My ancestors would say I have gone mad, he said. That I am betraying everything they built. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back. But perhaps it is time for new ancestors. Perhaps it is time to build something different. He left the chamber, his heavy footsteps fading down the corridor. Chun and Vasquez remained, looking at each other. Do you think he will really do it? Vasquez asked. Chun considered the question. I think he won't. 6 months had passed since the Crucible demonstration. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one had predicted. General Thrakver stood before the Grand Council of Keth, facing the most powerful warriors and leaders of his species. Many of them were old, scarred veterans who had spent their entire lives fighting in the traditional way. They looked at him with suspicion and barely hidden contempt. You ask us to abandon everything our ancestors built, growled Elder Krathmar, the oldest member of the council. You ask us to hide behind machines like frightened children. I ask you to consider a different path, Thrakver replied calmly. Not abandonment, evolution. He activated a holographic display, showing combat statistics from the past 50 years. The numbers were stark and brutal. Millions of Kethany warriors dead. Entire generations lost. Families destroyed. This is what our traditional methods have cost us, he said. This is the price of glory. Another display appeared, showing projections based on human-style integrated combat. The difference was staggering. Casualty rates dropped by 90%. Combat effectiveness increased by over 300%. The same objectives could be achieved with a fraction of the losses. And this is what could be possible, Thrakver continued. Not weakness. Greater strength. The strength to protect our warriors while still defeating our enemies. Elder Krathmar slammed his fist on the table. Pretty numbers from human machines. Our warriors are not data points. They are heroes. They seek honorable death in battle. You would deny them this? Thrakver stepped closer to the elder. My son sought honorable death. He found it. He was 19 years old. His voice was steady but heavy with emotion. I have killed more enemies than any living Kethany. I have conquered worlds. I have earned the right to question whether all those deaths were necessary. The council chamber fell silent. I am not asking you to become human, Thrakver said. I am asking you to let me try something new. Let me train a single unit using the integrated methods. Let us test them against traditional forces. If they fail, I will accept whatever punishment you decree. But if they succeed, you will consider expanding the program. The elders conferred among themselves in low growls and mutters. Finally, Krathmar spoke again. 1 unit. 6 months. If your experiment fails, you will be stripped of rank and exiled. Thrakver bowed his head. I accept these terms. Far across the galaxy, Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez was conducting a very different kind of training. The facility on New Geneva was designed specifically for cross-species integration programs. Representatives from 3 different species had been selected as the first candidates, young warriors from the Meridian, the Synthera, and now a small group of Cathany volunteers sent by Thrakvar. Vasquez stood before them in a simple training room. No weapons, no combat simulations. Just a circle of confused alien soldiers wondering why their first lesson involved sitting quietly. "Before we begin any technical training," she said, "you need to understand something fundamental. AEGIS is not a weapon. It is not a tool that makes you stronger. It is a partnership." She tapped her earpiece. "AEGIS, please introduce yourself." The familiar warm voice filled the room. "Greetings. I am the Autonomous Engagement Guidance and Integration System. I exist to support and protect soldiers in combat. But I can only do this if you trust me, and if I trust you." A young Cathany warrior raised his hand. "How can a machine trust?" "You are just programming." "A fair question," AEGIS responded. "My programming gives me the ability to learn and adapt. Over time, I develop understanding of each soldier I work with. I learn their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears, their hopes. In this way, I come to know them. And from knowledge comes something that functions very much like trust." Vasquez continued. "The technology is the easy part. Neural links, data feeds, combat analysis. Any species with sufficient development can learn these things. The difficult part is the philosophy behind it." She walked slowly around the circle of trainees. "In your cultures, you have been taught that soldiers are resources, that casualties are acceptable costs, that a good commander spends lives to achieve objectives." She stopped and looked at each of them in turn. "We will teach you to think differently. Every life matters. Every soldier who dies represents a failure, not a success. Your goal in combat is not just to win, but to win while losing as few of your people as possible." The Cathany warrior spoke again. "This sounds like cowardice to me." Vasquez smiled slightly. "I have heard that before. From your General Thrakvar, in fact. Right before I defeated 20 of his best warriors without killing any of them, the Cathany went quiet. Choosing not to kill when killing is easy is not cowardice," Vasquez said. "It is discipline. It is strength. It is the hardest thing a warrior can learn." Across the galaxy, other changes were happening. Ambassador Chen Wei-Lin sat in her office on Nexus Prime, reviewing reports from dozens of worlds. The Crucible demonstration had created ripples that were still spreading. Some species had reacted with fear, seeing humanity as a threat to be contained. They had formed quiet alliances, sharing information and resources to counter human influence. Chen monitored these developments carefully, but was not overly concerned. Fear-based alliances rarely lasted. Other species had reacted with interest, sending diplomatic missions to inquire about partnership programs. The Meridian had been first, followed by the Synthera, and now a steady stream of others. Each one was carefully evaluated. Humanity would not share EGIS technology with those who might misuse it, but the most encouraging developments came from unexpected places. On 12 different worlds, grassroots movements had begun questioning traditional military practices. Young warriors were asking why so many had to die. Families were demanding to know if their loved ones' deaths had been necessary. Change was slow, but it was happening. A message arrived from Thrakvar. Chun read it with interest. Training proceeding. Much resistance from traditional officers. But results are promising. The young warriors are learning faster than expected. They are beginning to understand. She smiled and composed a reply. Keep going. The path is difficult, but you are not alone. 6 months later, a summit was convened on Nexus Prime. The purpose? To vote on the creation of the Integrated Defense Initiative, a voluntary program through which species could adopt human style, Combat philosophy and technology. The debate was heated. Representatives from military cultures argued that the program was an attempt to weaken their societies. Others pointed to the success of pilot programs, showing dramatically reduced casualties and improved effectiveness. General Thrakver addressed the assembly. He was changed from the warrior who had called humanity cowards a year ago. His eyes held a different kind of fire now. "I came here believing that strength meant how many you could kill," he said. "I called humans cowards because they did not fight the way I thought warriors should fight. I was wrong." He displayed statistics from his experimental unit. "My integrated warriors achieved objectives that would have cost traditional forces 10,000 casualties. They did it with 17 injuries and no deaths. They are not weaker than our old warriors. They are stronger because they fight with the full support of our civilization behind them." He looked around the hall. "The future is not about which species can throw the most bodies into the fire. It is about which species can protect their people while still achieving their goals. Humanity showed us this path. It is time for others to follow." The vote was held. The initiative passed, though not unanimously. 12 species agreed to participate in the first phase. Others promised to observe and reconsider. It was not a complete victory, but it was a beginning. After the summit, Vasquez stood on an observation deck, looking out at the gathered ships from dozens of worlds. Some had come as allies. Some had come as skeptics. Some had come simply to watch. Heavy footsteps approached. Thrakver joined her at the viewport. "You have changed the galaxy," he said. "One soldier, one demonstration, and now everything is different." Vasquez shook her head. "The galaxy changed itself. We just showed what was possible. The choice to follow was made by beings like you." Thrakver was quiet for a moment. "I still do not fully understand your species. You have power that could dominate the galaxy. Why do you not use it?" Vasquez considered the question carefully. "Long ago, humanity learned that the strongest weapon is the one that stays in its sheath. The greatest power is the power you do not have to use. But why? What stops you from simply taking what you want?" Vasquez turned to look at him. "Because we built all of this, HFY, our military and our philosophy, not to conquer the galaxy. We built it to protect what we cannot bear to lose." Thrakver tilted his massive head. "And what is that?" Vasquez looked back out at the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of humans lived their lives, raised their families, dreamed their dreams. They were protected by soldiers like her, by systems like HFY, by a civilization that had learned the true cost of war. "Each other," she said simply. "We built all of this to protect each other." Thrakver was silent for a long time, looking out at the same stars. Finally, he nodded slowly. "I think," he said carefully, "I am beginning to understand." They stood together in silence. Two warriors from very different worlds, watching the ships that represented a changing galaxy.